Thank you for coming to our session today. This is Level Up Your Sales. Thank you. Level Up Your Sales, Marketing, Customer Service, Gemini for Google Workspace. So we're going to talk about how employees are benefiting from this at a high level. We're going to go into some specific use cases, and then we have an excellent customer panel for you all. That's going to be the bulk of the conversation today. I am Tony Majewski. There we go. I'm Tony Majewski. I'm part of the Global Workspace team. I do strategy for that. I'm joined by my great friend and colleague, Donato. I'll let him introduce himself.
Thank you, Tony. Welcome to everybody. My name is Donato Meli. I work in the Global Go-to-Market team for Workspace. So excited to be here today with you.
Awesome. So let's go ahead and get into it. This is, I think, an incredibly exciting time, I would say so, right? Generative AI is front and center for every single organization on the planet. Where you're at in the adoption curve, that may vary, but I think pretty much every organization recognizes that it is going to have an impact, some way, shape, or form, as it relates to the organization, their teams, and their people, right? Some people might be a little bit further along. Hopefully there's some Gemini customers in here. I definitely see some, so fantastic, thank you, awesome. But we're seeing studies that show something like this. 60 to 70% of an employee's time could be saved, automated with this type of technology. That is an incredible number, right? An incredible number, but there's a lot of variables that come into play that influence really maximizing the benefits of this technology. And I think it's really important that we ground ourselves in understanding that, and I think we'll get a lot of these insights during our customer panel. But like one that immediately comes to mind is, what is our users' core aptitude of the platform, even before something like Gemini? Right? In the case of Workspace, are they using things like smart chips? Are they turning on noise cancellation? Are they turning on portrait restore? Are they using smart compose in Gmail? Right? Making sure that our users are really aware of what the platform can do at its best, at the core, is going to ensure really strong power users as it relates to the Gemini capabilities, because it takes advantage of things like building blocks and variables. So it's important that the users know things like that exist, so they're not super surprised or confused when they ask for an email draft in Docs and it puts it in this wonderful Gmail building block, right? There's also a really big importance around persona mapping, understanding how people work, understanding how people collaborate, understand how people share. When do they share, right? When do they have the confidence in when they share? And that really helps us determine a lot of qualitative value as well as the quantitative. That's, I think, what we immediately think about in terms of productivity savings. Right? But we see things like quality of work improve, confidence in work improve, and those things are really important. And it's guiding why organizations are investing in this type of technology. And it also allows us to manage our expectations, because there are users that are going to run headfirst into this and be very good at it, right? For those that aren't, we've put together this wonderful guide on prompting, right? You all get one of these. It's fantastic. Definitely go check out the booth on the conference floor as well. But we need to understand, what does change management look like? We also need to understand that change management is going to be constant, because the roadmap doesn't stop today. It's going to continue to evolve, new features, new functions, right? Side panel, take notes for me, exciting features that are coming down the pipe for this technology. So we need to make sure that people are aware, they know how to use it and get the most out of it, right? But we do understand that this is exciting. It's the most fun I think I've ever had working in tech. Ever. I was talking to Russell about this a little bit earlier. It's so much fun to get creative and to put Gemini through its paces and understand how it can automate work. So it's really, really exciting. I'm loving it. I've loved the fact that it's basically consumed my professional career. But for those that aren't as aware, if there's people that aren't Workspace customers, it's okay, you're among friends. We can talk about it, right? We have 3 billion active users. That's a lot, right? We have 10 million paying customers. There's a lot of momentum behind Workspace, a lot of people that are moving to Workspace, a lot of people moving to Workspace for things like cybersecurity reasons, productivity reasons, understanding the dynamic shifts in the workforce. But what this number means when we think about it as it relates to Gen AI is the foundational aspects of it. Right? 3 billion people at scale, cloud native, built for collaboration in a highly secure way, right, with being super reliable. That's really, really important when you're thinking about foundational concepts and accessing things like generative technology and making sure that it's available, it's useful, right? 3 billion people would be very difficult to support if it wasn't intuitive technology. So we think that it's a really strong foundation to take this next step into the Gemini era. Having that Gen AI powered assistant that's embedded across the platform. Help me write within Docs, right? Side panel, when it releases, will be persistently available across the platform. The really exciting Meet features that are available, slides. So being able to have that without any compromise as it relates to data security and privacy, right? Your data is your data is your data. That's going to continue to ring true with Gemini for Google Workspace the same way it's always rang true with Workspace as a core platform. So one of the big benefits and feedback for users that have it today, I think the biggest differentiator that they see with it is that embedded experience, meeting the users where they're at, so they're not having to context switch from platform to platform, copy, paste, right? It is a part of the user experience, it's a part of the workflow, and that's really where you do see a lot of those benefits come to fruition around being able to accelerate the way that we work, right? Because you're doing it within docs, you're doing it within sheets, you're doing it within slides, right? And that's going to become even more powerful as the roadmap continues to evolve and more features come out. And so you are going to be able to boost productivity, right? Being able to go from a blank Google Doc to something highly structured with a go-to-market strategy document on taking Gen AI to the masses, right? Off of a well-structured prompt in 15 seconds, right? You're going from 0 to 60 to 70% in that little amount of time, and now your focus is on refinement rather than creation, right? And that's where we see the productivity increase, but we also see the quality of work increase because of that, right? Because you're focused on refining and up-leveling rather than getting started. You're also seeing that productivity increase because of things like summarization and context, right? Being able to get the gist of an email thread that you maybe missed because you're at Google Next for 2 days, right? 50 people responded. What is the core message here? Was I assigned anything? What does this person, what does this CXO need out of this thread? That allows me to direct my focus, right? It's going to benefit productivity. And again, safeguarding your data. Doing all of this, delivering it to all of your users safely, securely, and quickly without compromising anything from a security perspective. Right? We are not training our models with your information. We're not maintaining any of the prompts. Everything is session specific for the user. Right? And then when we think about things like AI classification, that takes it to a whole other level. I'm a document management person by trade. I love that feature a lot, so I have to talk about it at least a little bit. But it's not just a collection of features. Right? How do we make it real for your people so when they run into the technology, it makes sense to them? Again, that prompt guide is a big example of this. Right? But that's where we go back to that persona mapping conversation that we had right at the beginning. Understanding how HR is going to see value from this, how sales, customer service is going to see value. From a sales perspective, right? How is it going to be a sales coach? Build me an account strategy for each of the CXOs that I need to communicate with all the way through their line of business leadership and to the people that are doing those tasks. Right? Give me the top 10 objections that a CISO may give me for potentially moving to Workspace. Right? So being able to have that embedded in that environment is super valuable, right? And would take notes from me is going to be super valuable, I think, for sellers as well. I think updating CRMs will be a lot more efficient and easy in that regard. Very exciting. Research analysts, starting in Gemini standalone, right? Doing market analysis if you're a telco organization. I need to understand how to reach a Gen Z audience in both rural and metropolitan markets. What are the key differentiators? What are the common areas? Turn that into a Google Doc and then have that into a slide deck to present to leadership in a matter of minutes, right? Being able to have a writing coach, making sure that you're communicating clearly and concisely. If English isn't your first language, making sure you've got full confidence in what you're sending out to your customer, your partners, right? A project manager going from 0 to something structured in sheets in a matter of seconds. And then a creative partner. Who here has ever said, here's what I'm picturing, right? This is what I'm picturing, or I've gone to a whiteboard and it's like stick figure, house, but it needs to be consumed by our customers. Being able to take that thought and turn it into something highly tangible in a matter of seconds can greatly reduce revision cycles. Right? So massive benefits to your people in understanding how they work. What do their workflows look like? How do they use the platform today? Who are they working with? When do they share? And making it make sense for them. Right? And there's a lot of good content on that. And to make it a little bit more real now, Donato's going to show you some demos.
Thank you, Tony. So I want to show you some examples of how Gemini can help you with your daily activities. And to do that, I'm going to walk you through some examples and situations. So let's consider the following. For a sales team, so Gemini for Workspace can do a lot for you. It can help you drastically reduce the time to do that research and legwork that you need to get ready for that meeting. Either if you have a meeting or if you want to get a meeting with the customer, you typically need to do all your homeworks to understand what's current, what's important, what's top of mind for the customer in that moment. And Gemini can definitely help you reduce drastically the time to do that. It can also help you reuse and capitalize on the data that is in your company because it's grounded in the data in your company. So maybe somebody else in your company already worked with this customer or they work with a similar customer in the same industry. So you can leverage that that data and that information and use it for your meeting. And it can also help you to customize your material. So for example, you don't want to go with your generic pitch deck. You want to create some specific content that maybe is related to the last meeting minutes you got with this customer. So all that can be automated with Gemini. But let's see that in action. So let's say I'm preparing for my second meeting with my customer. I'm going to meet a CISO of an apparel company talking about digital transformation. So I need to bring to the table a few ideas of what projects we can do together. And I'm looking for some inspiration. So I can ask Gemini app to help me to identify a few examples of possible digital transformation projects. So I can ask a question, articulate it the way I want and I can, and adding some details like the audience. This is for a CISO of an apparel company that focuses on Gen Z. So, and based on the information I have, Gemini is going to give me a few examples of possible projects, problems to be solved, possible solutions, and processes impacted. I can reiterate this process, asking the question different times in different ways until I get the answer that I really like. Once I get the answer that I like, at this point I can just click a button and export that into Google Docs, where the real collaboration starts. And here I can again fine-tune the answer as I wish. But now I want to answer my customer. I want to send a notification. In our last meeting, there were some questions that were unanswered. I can ask Gemini, please go and check in the last meeting minutes, check for the questions that were unanswered, and prepare a draft of an answer that checks all those points, based on also the data that I just collected. So you can cross-reference content in your drive and in your documents to get faster when you need to be. Let's consider another scenario, marketing team. So Gemini for Workspace can help you to, for example, do that analysis of your audience. So if you're targeting a specific audience, you might want to know, okay, what's their interests, what's their habits, what's the demographic, what's their pain points, what they use, what they care about. Gemini can help you get all that information faster. And then you want to create, for example, a marketing brief, but you don't want a generic template of a marketing brief. You want a marketing brief that is based on the data you just collected. And then, of course, you can use Gemini for Workspace as a perfect partner for a brainstorming session to get ideas, or also to help you have some visuals for your campaign. But let's see also an example in action in this case. Let's say I was out of the office for a few days. I come back and I find a huge exchange with a customer. So Gemini for Workspace in Gmail can help me have a quick summary of a long thread to understand what was discussed. In this case, I understand that my customer is stepping into a new product line. They want to start selling tea, and is asking for some suggestions for a marketing campaign on social. Now, also in this case, I don't want to create a message that is generic. I want the message to be in line with the customer brand. So I can point the AI, I can point Gemini toward a specific piece of content where I know we store the brand identity of this customer, because I want an answer that is tailored, not a generic answer. So in this case, I point Gemini toward that document and I ask, please give us an example of 5 possible posts, but specific. And that's the power of it. So Gemini is going to go in there, consider the data that I referred, and give me an answer that is customized for me. Now, let's consider another scenario, customer service. So if you're in customer service, you typically receive a lot of questions. You need to find the right answer for each question. Typically, that takes a little bit of time. Then you need to validate that the answer is the right answer. Then you need to craft the right email. So all these activities take time. And having this process streamlined can help you increase your customer satisfaction, because you can deal with more customers, or eventually, if you're in sales, can help your throughput. So Gemini can help you to find the right answer to the question based on all the data you have access to, maybe even based on the data you didn't know you have access to, and help you validate that the answer was the right one, and help you craft the right message with the right format and tone based on your customer's answer. Let's see an example of this. So let's say I have a big exchange, a long exchange with a customer. So again, Gemini in Gmail can help me have a summary of what what's the actual customer's question here? So the customer is asking, wants to place an order, but is inquiring about our discount. Now, I don't know, in this case, where the information about our discount is, so I open my drive, open the side panel, and just ask an open question to all my documents. So based on all the documents I have access to, Gemini is going to find the right answer and give me the information I need. So in the other cases, I pointed to a specific document. In this case, I'm just asking an open question. And Gemini finds the right answer and also points me to the source, where this answer is coming from, which is important because I want my answer to be factual and grounded on specific data, so I can go in the document and double check for myself. Now that I know the answer, I can ask Gemini to please help me draft an email to ask my customer, to tell my customer exactly what I discovered. But now I'm certain that I'm giving the right answer. So I can do also this from a mobile phone, for example, because I can ask the same question from my phone if I'm on the go, and I can, for example, ask Gemini to craft this email, just dictating the prompt from my mobile phone when I'm at a conference, for example. So those were just a few examples of things that Gemini for Workspace can do for you, but it can do much more. But don't take my word for it. I just want you to hear it directly from our customers, who are probably the best people who can give you some real example of how they are using our technology. So this is a perfect segue to welcome on stage our fantastic panel today. So please welcome on stage Parul Salini, Head of IT from Uber, Russell Leader, Associate Director of Verizon, Nick Manning, Director of Consumer Products, Golden State Warriors, and Shezan Kazi, Head of Perb Engineering, Randstad. Please come on stage. We have a really fantastic panel today. So we are so excited to have you here. Fantastic customers, fantastic partners from different industries. We are so excited to have you. Thank you so much for being here. Before we get to the questions, if you could tell us a little bit more about your role and how your company is using Gemini for Workspace.
You want me to start?
Yeah, you can start.
I run the IT team at Uber. We've been Workspace customers for over half a decade at this point. I would say we were the early adopters of Gemini last year. We did the beta testing with you guys when you released the features. And primarily, we're using Gemini right now for content generation. So a lot of use cases that you talked about around research, analysis, documentation, content generation, that's how we are using Gemini.
Fantastic.
So my team manage collaboration and mobility space for Verizon. So all of the products that everyone uses every day to communicate and the mobile devices we use within the company, my team, very fortunate to have a great team, we manage all of those. Likewise, we've been a Workspace customer now for, I think, coming up 9 years now. So a lot of time there. In Gemini, we've been using it with a subset of our users for just a couple of months. And we didn't start out with a specific goal in how it would be used. We gave it to a variety of people, and we wanted them to tell us how they can use it. So we didn't want to be prescriptive. We've given examples of what things that we have done, but then we want them to come back and tell us how they have used it to gain efficiencies.
I lead our product team, and we build our fan-facing experiences, mobile and web apps, and we don't really administer our Workspace instance, but we've been leading all of our AI efforts. So we've taken that on, and it's been an interesting experience to be able to take our experience with user experiences and apply that to the business side and kind of see how we can create new tools to enhance efficiencies within the organization. We've been a Workspace customer for a couple years now. We've taken an interesting subsection of our users from top users to like the inactive users, as we've been also migrating from other collaboration tools into Workspace and being able to see if there's an opportunity to understand why they've been out on the sidelines and haven't really come on board. Another opportunity that we've been looking at with Gemini is getting the mindset and the change management with the company culture on thinking on how can we use AI into our everyday work. So this has been a great, easy way to enter into that space, and it started a lot of conversations like, if we can do that in a doc, what could we build that would be custom and amazing for us as well?
Cool. I work for Randstad. Randstad is the world's largest HR services company. We have around 90,000 users on Workspace right now. We have a subset of these users on Gemini. And we didn't set out with a specific goal in mind. We wanted to see how a deeply integrated Gen AI solution could actually benefit our employees that mostly do knowledge work, actually. And what we've seen so far is that a skill, which is AI or IT, or which has been a skill in the past, has actually become more of a tool set. And it's helping people explore areas of their work, for example, in marketing, where technical marketing used to be reserved for a specific elite, which is data savvy, which is highly literate in IT. But with something like Gemini, what we've seen is that anyone who's interested in using advanced data analytics or interested in doing extensive content creation can actually do it as long as they have a Gemini license. So we're actually right now evaluating what we'll use it for. We have several Gen AI initiatives running outside of Gemini for Workspace. We have a lot of it on Vertex also. But Workspace for us, Gemini and Workspace for us is really about letting people find out what do they want to use Gen AI for.
Fantastic. Actually, I love that. Even with some differences, all of you have as a common theme the openness to try and to have your users experiment with this. So that's a fantastic approach. So I would say let's get now a little bit into the decision-making process, let's say. So could you describe how you ended up choosing and considering adopting an AI solution in your company? Peru, do you want to start?
Sure. So we started actually quite early last year in evaluating a lot of Gen AI offerings for Uber. And we realized when we were launching or experimenting with some of these features, much like what Shazan said, we had to let them experiment with it, but also give them guidelines. So one of the first things, because you can't just release the features if people have no idea how they can potentially use it and what they can build upon. So one of the first things we did was we worked with you all to figure out what Gemini could do for different personas in an organization. And we created a training guide, essentially. So when we launched that features to the pilot group, and I'll talk about that in a minute, but when we launched those features to the pilot group, they could actually look at our training guide to see how they can use different features to do their jobs better. So that gave them a starting point, and then they built upon it. Now, it's very important for us to have a subset of the entire organization in these pilots groups. So what I did first thing last year was went to each executive leader at Uber, told them what we wanted to do, either have them nominate some of their team members to work with us on pilots, or self-solicit or self-nominate. So we did kind of bottoms-up and tops-down approach because I wanted to make sure that the leaders are also aligned in what we wanted to do with Gen AI, and they're not left behind. So once we had this pilot group, we started launching these features and phases. And the other essential element is to track what users are doing. So we can use that as an opportunity to cross-train each other. So we're doing a lot of qualitative analysis with respect to data gathering to figure out how you're using these features, and is it really helping you do your job better? Because I can't tell you whether AI is helping you do your job better. Only you can tell me. And we're actually having folks fill out surveys to tell us for a task that took them a certain amount of time before we launched the AI feature, what did it take after? And even in their mind, what was the quality of work? So those are some of the things we've done.
And just out of curiosity, how easy it was to find the volunteers? Because you were asking for volunteers for the pilot.
Yeah.
How was the response from your users?
It was great. Actually, in the beginning, it was very slow. And that's why I had to go pick people. And I said, I'm putting you in a pilot group, and do you have any objections? And they were okay. And after that, we had a self-nomination. And then it became more of a scarcity mindset or FOMO. They felt they were not part of the group. So we have a pretty solid group, about 500, 600 people in that pilot group. So
Nice.
even when I was working with you all, I asked for a bunch of licenses, a big number of licenses, so I can give it out to our pilot group so that we can have a good sample size to make decisions with. Yes.
So for Verizon, Gemini is just one of the many AI areas that we're working in for Workspace, but we also use Gemini for other things and a number of other products as well, plus internally developed. But talking specifically around Workspace, one of the main factors for us was we wanted something that would integrate with the existing product that people are already using day in, day out. We didn't want to have them go to another area, have to deal with that friction of task switching, and it's just there, right? So it's just like another feature that is added on, and a lot of our users have gotten used to new features being added over time. We have a fairly well-developed practice for change management to explain those when they come out, so people aren't blindsided by, hey, the view looks a little bit different. We've given them communications up front about that. And Gemini just landed well in that mindset. And similar to Perel, we had a influencers group, which we had already established. So it's back from our early days with Workspace, from a diverse set of resources across the company and different departments, different countries. And those people are somewhat self-selected, that they are interested in new technology. They want to try something out. They'll be prepared to put in some personal effort, because everyone has a real day job as well. So they're prepared to put that personal effort in, and then they will give us candid feedback. But then if it's something we determine we're going to roll out more broadly, they will also help us evangelize that product within their departments. And that's worked out very well for us.
Fantastic.
We're not a technology company, but kind of the virtue of where we are, a lot of our neighbors and everyone in our backyard, we're very much a technology-first organization. We follow kind of this mantra of like using technology to do more with less, and so we're always looking for opportunities to build or automate or create tools and give those to the teams internally so that they can focus on these amazing fan experiences out in the arena or other community-related efforts. And taking that off their the busy work off their plates. So as we've been consolidating our collaboration tools, looking at what other tools out there, and then with the conversations around Gemini, it was like a perfect match to see like what could we do to get people to that last mile on the documentation, get them more in the iterative space, and then be able to publish and then move on to the next task. So it was something that married really well with just our more overarching efforts.
We're also not a technology company. Randstad is a talent company, so our business is not cloud next, it's cloud last, actually. We need to focus on engaging with real people. And that's what our employees do best. They're actually good when engaging in conversations, and they're not always skilled in adopting new technologies. And of course, there are hundreds and by now probably thousands of Gen AI providers and solutions on the market, but we really needed something which united all these possibilities in one place. We work with Salesforce, we work with Workday, we work with Google Workspace, and if we were going to tell users to use another tool and another tool, they'd do it for a week, and it's just like when you install an app on your phone, you'll use it for the first week, and you'll forget about it. So to us, it was really important to have a harmonized IT landscape, which users find easy to navigate. That was one part. The second part was we need to build on our reputation. So we need to be a very trusted company. We work with our clients and our talents for years, sometimes for decades. And so we need to also have partners that we can rely on. And Google has been in this AI game for as long as I can think, before I even entered this world. And I think these were the most important: a easy to navigate, intuitive, harmonized tool landscape, a trusted partner, and then something which we could gradually roll out. and users wouldn't feel like they're being overloaded.
It's actually nice how some of you said we're not a technology company, right? So I think at the end, probably no company or very few companies are technology companies. Each company has a mission, right? And it's technology should be seamless, right? Should be a mean to your objective. So it's nice to see how actually all across the board, Workspace and Gemini can help you with that. So thank you for all these insights. Actually, maybe even exploring and drilling down a little bit on the users group who were selected, right? So you had different approaches. Can you tell us a little bit more about how these groups reacted, and if you have managed to have some qualitative and quantitative criteria for how things are going and how you see that evolving?
Yeah. I can start. There's one thing I wanted to talk about, the decision-making process that was extremely important for us, because we are a technology-first company, and we have a lot of responsibility with the user data that we have in our systems. So as part of the decision-making process, while the adoption was one of the factors, it was not the most important factor. So for somebody in my position to determine which partner do I choose to work with, security, innovation, and our ability to move fast and our ability to release those features to users was very critical. So Google has always led the pack when it comes to security. So from that perspective, it was a very easy decision for us to make. And the second question that we had to answer internally was, what would you do with our data once we actually use your Gen AI features, because the models are not running in our infrastructure? And you had to be very clear about what is the boundaries around the data that we are giving you. So I think you all did a fantastic job in being able to answer those questions clearly, crisply, and very fast. So I think that was the second element with regards to decision making. So when I think about that, as we were engaging these early adopter groups, along with the trainings around the usage of the tools itself, we also educated them on what to do or what not to do on these systems. But with Google especially, I did not have an issue, and I didn't have to create a lot of guidelines around what to do and what not to do, but it was still pilot, it was still early stages, so we had to do that training with the users as well. So I would say when we started, there was some skepticism, because they wanted to be cautious, they did not want to do more than needed, but over a period of time, that fear sort of went away, and they used the Gen AI offerings for truly what they can be, which is an augmentation to their own selves or personas. And that was the point where we wanted to get them to. What else can I answer for you? I think that was primarily it from an early adopter perspective.
And a good dose of skepticism is always healthy, so that's definitely good.
So with our pilot team, because they were somewhat self-selected, they like new technology, it wasn't a challenge to get them to use it. If anything, there's more people who wanted to be in that pilot, because you can't turn around anywhere in the past 6 months without running into a newspaper article on AI, whether AI is going to be good or great or end the world, depending on whatever your position is. So that was pretty easy for us to get people to use it and excited. And initially, people were just doing the kind of fun things that everyone was doing when AI first came out, right? Oh, well, can it do this? Can it write a poem for my spouse's birthday or my kid's party, that kind of stuff. But what we wanted to then do was, okay, that's fun, that's great, you're getting your feet wet, but now how can you start using it for work? How can you start using it to be efficient, to save time, to be more accurate? So we did some change management with them, had some assistance from Google with some items. And what we also did then, we put them in a special forum where they can share examples. So if one particular group from finance has, hey, I just did this great thing in Sheets, they can share that with everybody else, gets other people in other departments thinking, well, I don't need to do that exact thing, but I need to do something similar. And then we started sharing prompts. Then we also solicited people who would like to share that information. And we now do some short form videos, try and do a couple a week for people's real life examples, not pie in the sky. These are real things that people have done in the company to build continued excitement. and get them to use it. And one of the things I'm quite excited about is the booklet that Tony showed. I think there's a lot of great things in there if you haven't picked one of those up. I was reading it last night. That's going to help a lot of our users.
I love it. Collaboration at the end is always the answer, right?
It's funny, our total workspace user base is probably smaller than your pilot groups. So for us, it was a lot easier to kind of cherry pick who was going to be participating. And as I mentioned earlier, what we did is actually pulled a list of activity in Workspace and went through and kind of picked out the people who were hyper engaged. And so these are going to be people who are going to be the promoters if this is something that works for us, right? And then again, on the other side, picked out people who are the outliers so that maybe we could use this as a learning lesson to understand why haven't they adopted the new tools or what is holding out for them. And then in the middle, we kind of just went through and looked at the different organizations within the company and picked, where are they strategically positioned to help this pilot and give us insights. So we pulled in someone from the studio to give us insights into the image generation and help us define governance around, if we roll this out broader, what rules or what guidelines do we want to put in place for image generation, for pitch decks with partners and things like that. So as you can imagine, we have a lot of proprietary imagery and assets that way that we are very protective of, that we want to make sure that we're planning before we roll it out to put some, guardrails up for our users. And we've spun up a Slack channel. We do a regular lunch and learn, and have done some surveys to get that level of engagement to understand what people are doing and how they're utilizing it. But I think one of the biggest metrics for us on success for this is just the conversations that are coming up. People coming up and asking how do I do this? Could we do this in Gemini? And then a lot of it turns into no, we need to go and build something separate for that effort.
For us, it was actually a wild ride so far. So we started off and we said, anyone who wants to use Gemini, we need to have a proper business case. We need to know what efficiency gains do we get from it, and it's not a lot of money, but if you scale it, it does sum up to several thousand euros. And so what we did is we first had a classification of use cases, and we would check if users that requested access would actually fall into those. And then handing out licenses all of a sudden didn't make much sense because the technology was too new, and the users that wanted to use it, and they were going to explore, but they weren't really aware of how it would impact their lives. And so what we changed then, relatively soon actually, is we started handing out access to anyone who wanted to use it under the premise that they actually use it. They don't just get access, but they engage frequently. We have a space on Google Chat where these users engage, where they exchange information and experiences. And this has now, and I said this yesterday on a different panel, this has now created a shift where we don't look at efficiency anymore when evaluating Gen AI. We actually look at improving the user experience. If we can see that the user experience is actually going to benefit, then the business case for us is proven, regardless of if we have measurements in efficiency that translate one-to-one to a business case.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I think largely we've seen that as a more recent theme I've even seen some of the analyst firms have coined, it's not about ROI, it's about ROE, right? The return on employee. And that employee experience aspect of it is I think, central. So love to hear that. So I think pretty much everyone has been in the trusted tester, the early adoption, and I think rolling it out in production in cases. What have been the biggest learnings for you as you continue to look at broader adoption and best practices? What were some friction points that you saw that you're learning from? Where do you see opportunities as you look at expanding out? And does the roadmap influence that at all as well?
And much like my peers here, we're also experimenting with more than just one set of Gen AI tooling. The biggest challenge that we see right now is to separating the signal from the noise that we see, because everyone is trying to do something similar. So one of the cautions that I would have for everyone in the audience is to think about the core problem that we are trying to solve for as we are leveraging these features or these new platforms that we're introducing for the users. Because one thing that I see a lot of us do wrong is focus on a platform and what that platform can offer, not about the overall workflow or the experience that we are trying to create. Because it's not a competition between platforms, it's a cohesion between platforms that in our roles we need to generate for our end users. So that was actually one of the first set of learnings for us. We're still trying to figure out how do we do it the right way. And then the second set of learning was that oftentimes we were giving people this new shiny ball that they were very excited about. They had fear of missing out. We gave them a license, and these licenses are extremely expensive. But we realized people are not really using it as much as we thought they would. So in that case, how do we either increase the adoption, track the usage, but then get the right capacity for the organization so we can balance, because at the end of the day, we have to pay for these tooling, right? So how can we balance the return of investment with the ROE, but have the right set of users leverage these tools to do their jobs better? And then the metrics piece is very difficult for anyone right now, and mostly we are going after qualitative metrics where we are asking users, is it working for you? But we have to get to a point very quickly where we need to have quantitative data to prove whether it's actually working or not. Otherwise, it is not going to lead to a good experience. It is going to be very expensive, and I'm thinking about the holistic landscape of AI tools. So if we don't have those answers from the very beginning now, it will be very difficult to create a long-term roadmap.
Yep.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Russell?
I would say you just need to get started. You need to find a few people who are willing to work with it and, to your point, continue to work with it, because just like everything with Workspace, it continually gets better. So if you used it a month ago and you didn't get a great result, I guarantee you probably get a different result if you use it now. And on the demo there was the sidebar, which is coming out soon, hopefully, I believe, for us. That will be a significant change for people and improvement. So if you've had people try it who aren't going to continually re-engage, you'll have to figure out a way to make them re-engaged, get them more excited when these new features come out. And similarly, in terms of metrics and reporting, at the moment, you'll have to go with qualitative, right? So you have to poll your users. And users sometimes, your end users, they're busy, right? They already get a bunch of other surveys. Oh, here's another survey. You have to try and make a way for them to see value out of the feedback that they're giving you. Because otherwise, you won't get that feedback, and you won't know how they're using it.
I'd say the best practices and lessons I've learned is patience on your user base, and be prepared for just cultural change management. The notion of, at least for us, not being we're a tech-forward organization, not everyone that works within our company is a very techie or a tech-forward individual. So the notion of 60 to 70% of your day-to-day work could be taken care of by this chatbot is kind of a very jarring experience and a hard conversation to have. Also begs the question of, like, are you trying to replace my role? And so having those sensitivities around that and talking through, this isn't to change what you do, but more so how you do it, get you to those last few steps, and then take a lot of that busy work off your plate so you can focus on maybe some more productive things. But it is definitely something that has been a big takeaway, is the human experience of now, like, having to let go, and like you're used to having that autonomy and being the subject matter expert. Now you're asking this box to be that person for you. Our developers had a hard time with Gemini with the code assist at first, because it was kind of really challenging their roles. And then once they realized, like, oh, I can actually be much more productive. I don't have to do this, like, glue code or, the boilerplate stuff as much as I used to, and I can move forward onto some more exciting and more advanced things. Then, you have to hit that milestone first. So it's definitely patience with a cultural change management.
So in my position as head of AI strategy for Randstad, I try to have a very high-level perspective on where does Randstad have to be in 3 years? How are we going to change an industry which has been unchanged for decades now? And how can I have a big impact on the company as a whole? And this does apply to AI as a technology, but if we look at democratized AI, which is perhaps Gemini in Workspace, it doesn't have to be about making big changes. It can be about picking out very little points of impact, and these are the ones which in sum are actually going to impact the company most, because if I go to one of our offices in Germany or in Italy or in Sweden or the US, and I speak to people about what they want us to use AI for, and I tell them about our strategic initiatives, the only question which I always get is, how does this affect myself? What do I get from your strategic initiatives, which are going in a big corporation, which are going to affect their lives in 2 years maybe? But if you give them access to Gemini and you tell them, I know you don't know how to write a macro because you're not a programmer, but you don't have to write a macro now. You just have to put it in human language and let the magic happen for you. And I think this is very important. You need to, and this is what we learned, you need to separate the corporate approach to AI and the democratized one, where everyone can actually become an AI developer now because they know how to speak or they know how to write.